On today's video, we'll be looking at Terra Luna. Why did it crash? Was it done by outside powers? Or was it simply bad code that crashed? Let's take a look. Before we start with Terra, let's look at the events leading up to this. So, let's start with the founders. Do Kwon, an Ivy League computer scientist, and Daniel Shin, an Ivy League economist, teamed up to create Terra, the crypto. Previous to that, Do worked briefly for Apple and Microsoft, but left because working for them was, quote, not enough. He wanted to be a big tech giant himself. Terra was built by the Terraforms Labs, a South Korean software company that was started by the Terra Alliance Group, a group of 15 Asian e-commerce giants based in Singapore. Do stayed on as the co-founder and CEO of Terraform Labs, and Daniel left in early 2020 to become the CEO of Chai, a payment app that uses the Terra ecosystem. Before we get into Terra Labs and Terra in general, let's look at Do Kwon's previous crypto. Yes, there was one before Terra. It started as early as June 2017. Do Kwon founded Basis, a decentralized stablecoin with an algorithmic central bank. Around February 2020, the coin gained popularity and took off. Do Kwon used the name Rick, and the other founder was Morty. Yes, you heard that right. On June 2020, the price of Basis was $929, and it crashed all the way down to just over $1 on December 2020. What a collapse. This happened because Basis' share price went down and Basis Cash, the algo stable coin, couldn't hold its peg. Does this sound familiar? The difference this time is that Basis was a small-time crypto and Do Kwon was anonymous. What's even stranger is that Basis was connected to another failed algorithmic stablecoin crypto called Basecoin that was blocked by the SEC in 2018. Yes, another failed attempt. The founders were forced to return the $130 million back to the retail and institutional investors. Investors included One Confirmation, Andreessen Horowitz, Bain Capital Ventures, Digital Currency Group, Metastable Capital, Pantera Capital, and Polychain Capital. What's even crazier is that Pantera Capital and Polychain Capital both invested early in Terra Luna. Can this really be a coincidence? Terra was the new golden child of crypto. It came relatively out of nowhere and has rocketed to the top 10. Terra, the blockchain, was unique in having its USD algorithmic stablecoin pegged to Bitcoin and backed by its Luna token, among others. This means that instead of having cash and other assets held in a reserve to back its token, it uses a complex mix of code and Luna to stabilize the process. New Luna tokens are minted through protocol's algorithm as needed in order to maintain the $1 price of Terra's stablecoin UST. From the beginning, crypto experts were skeptical that an algorithm would keep Mr. Kwon's twin cryptocurrency stable. In 2018, a white paper outlining the stablecoin's proposal reached the desk of Cyrus Younesi, an analyst for the crypto investment firm Scalar Capital. Mr. Younesi sent a note to his boss explaining that the project could enter a death spiral, in which a crash in Luna's price would bring the stablecoin down with it. Quote, "I was like, this is crazy," he said in an interview. Quote, "This obviously doesn't work." Charles Cascrilla, a founder of Paxos, a blockchain company that offers competing stablecoin, cast doubt on Luna's underlying technology in an interview last year. Mr. Kwon responded by taunting him on Twitter. "WTF is Paxos," he replied. Kevin Zhao, a hedge fund manager, also repeatedly predicted that the two currencies would crash. Do Kwon was not the listening type, and he dismissed all the criticism with his arrogant tweets, even after several warnings by institutions and reputable people in the space. This included the Federal Reserve, economists, day traders, and even analysts. Despite that, Terraform Labs has secured a $150 million ecosystem commitment from Arlington Capital, Block Tower Capital, Delphi Digital, Galaxy Digital, Hashed, Lightspeed Ventures, Pantera Capital, Parafi Capital, Sky Vision Capital, and other investors. One of the largest early investors, Pantera Capital, a hedge fund that invested in Mr. Kwon's effort, made a profit of about 100 times its initial investment after selling roughly 80% of its holding of Luna around late 2021. Pantera turned $1.7 million into around $170 million. I don't know if this is a coincidence, but it's really well timed. The PWG report was released on November the 1st, 2021. It called for urgent action for regulations. Did you notice the timing of this? This was released at the height of the crypto bull market in November 2021. Then on January 2022, the Federal Reserve released a public paper on plans to create its own superior currency. The PWG report recommends that Congress acts promptly to enact a legislation that would ensure payment stablecoins arrangements are subject to a consistent and comprehensive federal regulatory framework. Such legislation would complement existing authorities regarding market integrity, investor protection, and illicit finance. It seems like the case for a government stablecoin was built. This, I think, is one of the reasons that has helped crash UST. The timing was almost perfect, and I don't think this was a coincidence at all. Terra's creator Do Kwon purchased $3.5 billion worth of Bitcoin to support UST in, quote, the event of a crisis. Perhaps foreseeing the failure of the mechanism intended to maintain the peg, Luna Foundation Guard announced it would purchase up to $10 billion in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to act as a reserve that would back the UST stablecoin. Now for the crash. On 30th April 2022, Do Kwon applied to dissolve Terra Labs, and on the 4th of May, his application was approved by the Korean Registry Office. The beginning of the crash was on the 9th of May 2022. This is when the value of UST began to drop. People noticed and it made the news. The Luna Foundation Guard announced that it would begin to dispose of its Bitcoin reserves and purchase UST in order to try to maintain the UST peg to the dollar. Over the course of the next day, the Bitcoin addresses holding the Luna Foundation Guard's reserves were emptied. 4 billion worth of Bitcoin were sold to maintain the UST price. Then, panic settles in, and a single wallet dumps $84 million worth of UST on the Ethereum blockchain, and another 108 million was sold on Binance. Then the network becomes congested as the UST stablecoin's value has continued to plummet from 90 cents down to 70, and it keeps crashing as all the users try to pull their UST out. Remember, this was meant to be a stable coin. For a stablecoin to go down to 70, it's unbelievable. Then the Luna Foundation Guard gets an emergency $1 billion loan to stop the crash, but it doesn't work. And questions have been asked about the fate of the Luna Foundation Guard's Bitcoin reserves and whether it was really used to support the stablecoin's value. Either way, it was too late. The death spiral has already begun. It's not clear yet how this happened, but Terraform Labs, the creators of Terra USD, saw their algorithmic stablecoin collapse from the $1 peg, and they must have been surprised. Eventually, USD went down to under a penny, where it remains. The crash brought the whole market down with it, with the average top 20 coin losing 20 to 30%, some as much as 50%. The crash brought many crypto projects down, and those who held or used USD for collateral suffered the most. Another is how overexposed the UST stablecoin was. The 20% APR on Anchor Protocol and other DeFi platforms was risky in itself. What made it worse was how many DeFi platforms were creating UST by taking loans and converting cryptos back to UST to make more gains. It was a recipe for disaster. Lots of investors lost out and confidence in the market dwindled. Do Kwon apologized, but it was just too late. Regulators in the US have now used the crash as an excuse to push for new regulations. Yellen also noted that she is hoping for further regulation to be put into place as soon as this year. According to a leaked document from the European Commission, its members are calling for greater rules that would prevent stablecoins from being widely used in place of fiat currencies. Now we're seeing the pressure that is being put on governments by huge banks. The Terra community voted for a proposal to start Terra 2.0, a standalone crypto without the stablecoin. Well, I guess they learned their lessons. Old holders of Terra and UST would receive the airdrops, and most of the exchanges will be supporting this. There are still questions on the logistics and how this would work. For example, what happens if you sold UST during the crash? And how would the airdrops be calculated? Terra's crash was one of the most memorable moments in crypto history. 60 billion was wiped off the market. Thousands of people have lost all their savings, and some sadly took their own lives. It has now been revealed by the SEC that Do Kwon was withdrawing billions monthly before the crash. A few days later, Do denied the allegations, but disabled any replies to his tweet. Bernie Madoff was sent to 150 years in prison for the largest Ponzi scheme in history, defrauding $64 billion. Will Do Kwon get the same? If guilty, I believe he is a close second at just over $60 billion lost. Crypto is unpredictable, but this crash was a combination of bad tech, carelessness, fraud, and intervention by outside powers. Whatever you think, this whole saga was unbelievable and the events were unprecedented. Who would have thought that a stablecoin would crash to under a penny? I'm sure the controversy will carry on. But this is the end of our video. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something today. Please make sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more notifications. I will see you on the next video. Peace.